How's it going, guys? Dylan from If Cars Could Talk, and I hope everyone's doing well today. Today we are in front of the Mosler Consulier GTP-LX, a very interesting and rare car, which makes it the perfect subject for my new series where I drive around with the owners of people that have very rare and interesting cars to go get coffee. It's kind of like comedians in cars getting coffee, except for, well, minus maybe the comedians. But regardless, it's a fascinating car because it tells a story of a dream we all have as car lovers. This guy actually created his own supercar company, and he was just a businessman with a dream.
Now, most of the time, dreams are left to be dreams. Sure, you say you've got this thing you're going to invent that covers opened, unfinished soda cans so they don't lose their gas. Copyright, by the way. But this guy actually made his soda thing. This was a product of a dream, a product of its era, a quintessentially 80s wedge shape and a car phone included. The car was faster, lighter, and better handling than its competition, Countaches and Corvettes alike. Mainly because it utilized a theory foreign to the US at this time, power to weight ratios. You see, it only had a modest 200 horsepower, reliable, cheap Chrysler engine, but it also only weighed 2,200 pounds due to an all-carbon Kevlar monocoque, the first of its kind, might I add. And it was so rigid that he actually took a sledgehammer to the roof of it 3 decades before Elon Musk hit his futuristic Cybertruck. His car was so superior that he was confident enough to put a $25,000 bounty on it to any car that could beat it. Now, Car and Driver took this bet and beat it. Unfortunately, because they used kind of a raggedy old one. PR was a bit of a nightmare. They talked a lot of crap and it didn't work out. But what did work out is it had an incredible racing career. Because this man loved his races, he, embedded it in the blood of this car. It actually won 3 IMSA races, and it was so successful that they changed the bylaws so they could kick the car out. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for this company because they only made 100 of these cars, and, well, I guess I'm just happy I got to go in this one.
Alright, here we go. This is a blast from the past here. And I fit quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually quite decent. So you sit very low in the car.
Absolutely. The car's only 44 inches tall.
That's crazy. But everything is leather, as you said. There's aircon. It's an incredibly, surprisingly luxurious car.
Yeah, well, the LX came with wool carpets, full leather, extended leather into the dash. And then you have a car phone, obviously, because you got to make your deals.
And because it's the 80s.
Because it's the 80s. And it had one of the top-of-the-line Alpine systems.
That's so cool.
So the car is pretty well appointed, even straight from the factory.
Wow.
But one of my favorite things is I wanted a really low car. I love wedges and door stops and Esprits and Panteras and all of that stuff. And I got to ride in a Pantera once, and you sit like this. Because both of us are about the same height.
There's quite a lot of headroom in here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Warren was a very tall man, so he made it a point to make a car that this car weighs as much as an Elise, and we're not rubbing elbows right now.
Yeah, and I heard it's because it's an incredibly rare composite material. This right that they've used for this car. It's kind of one solid piece. It doesn't require a metal chassis.
Exactly. It was the first of its type.
You'll notice here. So we have obviously 1,000,000 gauges, but my favorite one is the engine hours. So obviously very race orientated. This guy was a racer himself. But I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Would you like a coffee?
Love one.
Okay, let me look one up real quick. Is this gonna be in your way, or is this okay?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so we are aboard. That's so cool, man. Oh my God, are you serious? Come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't see this car though. It's so low. It's got that problem from the old Ferraris and stuff like that. They sit so low. It's basically dangerous just driving them because, well, no one can see them. I wish people could see my face right right now, but we have to wear masks. Wow. So I wanted to ask Ryan a couple questions. You guys have probably seen the Donut Media video. They go over the whole history of the car. I don't want to overlap, but I think what's interesting with this series is getting to know the people that own these types of cars. So if I can ask you, what made you want this thing?
I used to be super into E30s, and I still am. I love those cars, and I've probably owned like 12 of them. And I got to the point where I felt that I'd done everything that could be done with that car, and I'd really enjoyed them. And there's probably a lot of viewers out there that have multiple cars, and it's not really about the price of the car. It's just, oh, that's really cool, I'm going to buy it. And instead of doing this upgrade on a car, I could buy a whole nother car, and then you end up with all these cars. And at some point you go, what if I just sold everything and bought my dream car? And so I drove my friend's Esprit Turbo, and it was so, that car is just absolutely gorgeous to me. I love boxy, wedgy things.
Which this very much is. It
drove amazing. It was just absolutely a masterpiece of a car in terms of driver involvement and just the uniqueness of the car. And so I had to have one. So I put it up as my screensaver on my computer at work, my friend's car, and I stared at it every single day when I came into work, and that was my motivation. And through that time of trying to save up and everything like that, I had a kid. It kind of sidelined me for a couple of years. So 4 years later, after driving that Esprit and setting myself on that journey of what if I sold everything, saved up some money, what can I do with it? And I really, at that point, still wanted an S3, but at the same time, I've been to a lot of huge prestigious car shows, and I've seen that pretty much every rare, unique thing that most rich guys have. And the one thing that I really love about a car like this is its uniqueness. So when I discovered them,
well, they only made, what, you said 82 of them?
81 chassis, 25 became race cars, 39 actually became VIN titled.
So there weren't even really any street legal cars at all. So I'm wondering how the hell you even acquired it. How this thing handles around this corner. Oh God, I should not have told him to do this. Oh my God, I should not have told you to see how this handles. You're a lunatic. You're a bloody lunatic. You're a bloody lunatic. I love it. What a monster this thing is. It's an absolute go-kart. Oh my God. And stoplight. Sorry, I'm just gonna exit so I can shit my pants for a second. That was very fun.
Let's go play with
yeah, okay, let's do this. Never mind why you bought it. Let's just drive it. It's like an absolute go-kart. Oh my Jesus. Oh my God, you're a lunatic. The weird thing is I don't want you to stop. What a car! Oh my God! That guy.
Well, dude, I mean,
it's an unbelievably handling car, and you really don't feel like you got aids or anything. It's really quite mechanical feeling. The chassis it feels like it kind of you're one with it. You're communicating with it.
Well, you have to understand that, like, from the perspective of that era of performance, this car was as quick 0 to 60 as a ZL1 or ZR1, sorry, and then a Countach and Diablo were within tenths.
No way.
Yeah. So
and it only has about 200 horsepower.
Yeah. So everyone thinks like, oh, it's only 200 horsepower. This car weighs 2,100 pounds in full LX trim, and it weighed 1,800 pounds in race trim.
And what, 2,400 pounds after Dylan has his lunch.
So with that, the amount of performance you can get by adding lightness to a chassis with, you know, proper
well, it's the complete opposite concept of what America was doing back then. They just put as much power in, it doesn't matter what the weight is. This was really, how do we get rid of as much weight as possible so we don't have to have a massive engine. All right, so we have stolen a park bench here for our next question. How the hell do you acquire it?
So the week after I discovered them, one showed up on Bring a Trailer. And so then it was a mad dash to like get everything that I needed together to have a good budget to bid on this car. And
so that might have been pretty anxiety provoking, because here you are finding your car and it's on an auction basis.
I didn't sleep for a week. I was so nervous of what the car was going to go for, and I wanted it so bad, and I knew.
Did you have an idea of what these went for? Because obviously you said they made so few of them. How did you have
there was
an idea of what
auction
value you were going to be in?
Well, they had some previous auction values on Bring a Trailer from like one or two that had sold, and then also when they liquidated everything, they sold off a bunch of cars that were sitting in the warehouse unsold that were never sold.
You're kidding?
Cars.
So there were more that had similar maybe stories to your car that really weren't registered,
a little bit
so
different.
To speak,
those were more of the like outcasts that had issues or were press cars and they would be on or something like that. And then they just were never sold to an owner.
So did you have a number in mind that you wanted to end at?
Well, I thought the car was going to go much lower than it did. And then basically me and everyone dropped out where I thought it should be. And then one other guy decided that he had to have this thing, and we bid it up. So we actually completely changed the market on the car by like 40%, and that's just on that one auction.
That's the crazy thing, when you have such few numbered cars, you can actually totally influence the market from a single sale.
I got outbid on that car. So that's not even the car.
You're kidding?
Yeah. So that set me off as to, I have to have one of these, and I'm gonna get one. And I was, as a former auto broker, pretty good at searching for things, and I'm also pretty good at networking in automotive communities. So I befriended a lot of the owners of those vehicles that actually kind of came out of the woodwork to comment on the Bring a Trailer auction. And that's ultimately how I found my car 8 months later, is that one of those people I befriended put it up on the Obscure Cars group and said, hey, my buddy's thinking about selling this one. And I messaged him as like, I have to have that car. And I had a couple other leads on cars that I wasn't fully enthused on that had
Sounds like this was an endless obsession of yours.
I think once I get really stuck on something, that I obsess over it and I think about it all the time.
It's not to say I'm innocent, by the way, but that just, it seems, it's so funny. Anyway, so it gets checked out. What, you trailer it here?
Yeah. So it took them a while to get through and fix some of the issues of just the car sitting to make it run correctly to come off the trailer, and then I had it shipped to California. So it's kind of funny, we were talking earlier about taking the car into like more normal situations rather than just the cars and coffee or something like that. Look at this parking lot. It's all black, white, silver, gray. Everyone's basically the same, or they spend a lot of money to have the S version of something. And look at...
Dude, it just stands out like you're from the future or something.
Yeah, it's a very polarizing car. It looks polarizing. It's shocking to people, and some people hate it and some people love it, but everyone has an opinion about it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, like, what is it like to own it? Because I'm sure everyone approaches you and goes, what is that thing?
Absolutely. I think that it's something very special to drive, and I feel very special in terms of just everything about the car is very handmade and very well thought out, and just to literally be driving part of history is really, really special to me. But it's actually it rides nicely. The doors have actually like a really high position that they open, so you can clear a curb really, really easily. It's a pretty, for the fact that you're sitting on the floor, it's a very easy car to get in and out of. And it's actually got 6 inches of ground clearance. So it's got like a normal car's ground clearance, and so I actually scrape less in this car than I did in my lower D30s and all of that stuff.
Good opportunity to check it out. That's a really cool big bonnet.
Yeah, I love the louvers on it. It's one of my favorites.
What's interesting is the amount of empty space. I feel like they should have put a trunk here. Like you see it in the old Ferraris, like the 328s would have that.
Later versions did come with a trunk here that was enough to fit a golf bag.
That was just an extra, I think.
Yeah. But one of my favorite things is it says this is the VIN tag on the car is race car 16.
No way.
So that's like to me like one of those really special things about like a
dude, that's super cool.
Car. He wanted to create something absolutely revolutionary that's never been seen in a production car before, and he built an entirely bespoke carbon fiber chassis technology.
Yeah, I heard you can literally just stand on this and not dent it.
They were actually taking sledgehammers to it 3 decades before Elon did it with the Cybertruck.
No way.
Yeah.
And look, you can actually see Chrysler written on. So I mean, there are shared parts in this car, obviously.
Yeah, you could take it to any Dodge dealership in the country and service this car.
I can tell, I'm sure the original guy that owned this liked it. He got sold it. But as it gets...
Technically not. This is kind of an interesting story. So he was the right-hand man at Mosler Industries.
The person who owned this specific car.
Correct. And
wow.
So he cherry-picked his favorite car out of the production line at the time to be his car as an investment piece, and he parked it in the corner of the warehouse.
No way. And so, because they're all hand-built, they're all a little bit different too. So yeah, it was like, I know how that should be in there.
So when Mosler sold to Rosian Industries, they actually had to sell the car to the owner in 2011. So it's never titled or owned by an individual. It's owned by the company technically until 2011. It sold as a new unit to him.
Wow.
Yeah. So so the car sat in the warehouse. Check out the mileage on it right now.
It's 5,000. I saw it. It's unbelievable. I didn't know if it turned around the clock or not. It was kind of insane.
So I got this car with 2,400 miles on it. The previous owner got it with 1,800 miles on it, but was, I think, wholly unrealistic on how much sitting affects the car and what needed to be changed to make it actually drivable.
Which brings me to a question for you. What do you, how often do you use this car, and what do you use it for when you do use it?
I think one of my favorite uses is daycare drop-off. My daughter's 4, and she just absolutely loves it. She'll pick up the car phone and just talk to like to her friends or to grandpa, like.
Or when she's telling mommy how daddy's driving. Oh. Either way.
So yeah, like stuff like that where.
I'm sorry.
You expect to see cool cars when you go to a car show where people are going to turn out with cool stuff, but to see it on a Wednesday for a daycare drop-off, I love that juxtaposition of like, yeah, that contradiction. Or like when you see pictures of supercars where they're in like really gritty environments and stuff like that, where they just don't really seem like they belong. I like that because, you know, when you went to Cars and Coffee and met me, you expected
to harassed
see,
you.
You expect to see something cool by showing up there, and you expect
well, this is what's fun to see. I mean, and it's the same thing. Look, Ferrari dealerships are amazing. Ferraris are amazing, but you go to Ferrari, you can see 50 488s next to each other. You go to Cars and Coffee, you want to see things that are strange and unique like this. And as I said to you when we weren't filming, it's fun to pick the brains of owners of things that are this strange. Very addicting car, honestly, the way it drives. And I mean, in terms of that, I guess, is the final question is, do you still love it? And, you know, what are your plans for it? Is this something you could see yourself owning forever?
In terms of cars, my dream car as a kid was a Ferrari F40. That was what was on my wall. But even if I had the financial means of owning a car like that, I'm a big fan of actually driving my cars. And can you really go track a $1.5 million car and like feel good about it? And I think that I have the chassis on this car is more advanced than anything that came after it for the next 25 years, pretty much. And
so it checks your boxes essentially. And what would replace? There's nothing that could really replace it for you.
In terms of like a dream car for me, I mean, this is as close as I'm going to get to a Ferrari F40 experience, and I'm basically an engine build away from having a better power to weight ratio than an F40.
Well, I guess I have two sub questions to that. Is, do you still smile when you drive it and when you kind of floor it? And do you turn back and look at it when it's parked? I guess that's always the historical relevant question of loving cars. Right?
I love the whole experience and the theatrics of owning the car and sitting in the car and the way the leather smells and all the little details that when they were hand built. So I really do enjoy the car every single time I drive it. And it's very special to me to be able to go out
and it's been very special to be in it. And I can see why you love it so much. And you know, I don't want to sound like an old fogey, which my brother says I do. Maybe I listen to the Rolling Stones too much, but I just think it's so cool that there are so many things to look at. Whether you look at, you know, all the gauges, there's so many things to be entranced by. From not only the drivability of it, but just staring at all the different weird fins on it and all these little details that make it so intoxicating.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, yeah, maybe it's not perfect or it doesn't use the same componentry that a Porsche has had 50 years to perfect. But I think that one of the things that people kind of lose sight of with the car is, yeah, it was literally the 16th car produced by a manufacturer. It's not going to be perfect, and you have to accept that. But it was a very, very well thought out car, very well engineered car.
It was a labor of love.
It absolutely was, and you could see that in everything that was really well thought out on the car that really makes it actually enjoyable to own. So it was a really solid effort for a very, very first car. But really, what's really disappointing about it is, had this car been more commercially successful, it would have forced manufacturers to produce carbon fiber chassis technology, and they still aren't. The next car that was a fully carbon fiber chassis technology under $100,000 was a BMW i3 25 years later.
Yeah, and I mean, we even look at Ferrari today. Here's a company that claims to be this F1 amazing race history, whatever it is, and they don't even have bloody carbon fiber monocoques.
Exactly.
So there's a disconnect going on. And if the technology's so great, then why the hell aren't they putting the money into using it?
It's all profitability.
Yeah, I guess it is that contradiction, and I suppose that's what's always going to ultimately distinguish, you know, a lot of these cars that we love so much and where they're going, whether it be crash safety regulations, emissions, all of these things. Analog cars like this are going to cease to exist. And well, it's just been an absolute pleasure to be in this car, and I appreciate you letting me waste your time. So thank you.
You're welcome, Dylan.
Wow, that was pretty cool. I'm gonna try to get out. You got this giant door sill for my clumsy self to get out of, but
just, put your hand. If you didn't have a hand on the camera, you just put your hand on the door sill and up and out you go. It's actually pretty easy.
You didn't know I did gymnastics? No.
How is this compared to the Testarossa?
At least I could drive in this. I'd say that was the distinction. But wow, guys, I mean, that was an incredible experience to be in a car this wild, this crazy, this analog. And you know, big thank you to Ryan for giving me the experience to be in something like this. I mean, this is why I do these videos.
Yeah, thank you for having me on today.
Of course. I mean, anything you would like to plug, or anything that check you out anywhere, any Instagrams?
Yeah, I'm at Ceramic Pro Ryan, and I'm the director of sales at Ceramic Pro. I have a network of installers all over the country, so if you have any questions about restoration of paint on your classic car or anything like that, I can definitely give you some great information that's honest and get you pointed in the right direction to a professional in your area.
And at the very least, you can just say you want to get ceramic done and then go, let me see your car,